Pranam. I, G. Shah, partner of VCS, a boutique FMB and SME consulting firm, welcome you to this video in which we are going to further discuss on the second pillar of family wealth management, that is enhancing wealth. As we have already seen in the earlier videos, that there are three pillars to wealth management. One is creating wealth, other is enhancing wealth, and the last is safeguarding wealth. This video, as I said, will focus mostly on enhancing wealth. So, once you have carefully drafted rather investment policy, laying down the objectives, limitations, etc., that the next step is to decide the asset allocation. Asset allocation means the decision regarding the allocation of investable surplus into risky and not so risky assets. Now, please mark that I have used the word investable surplus. That is the money which could be invested after setting aside some money for emergencies. And that money can be about, say, 3 to 6 months of expenses that you set aside for emergencies. That means the amount that is available to you to invest, less the amount for, say, 6 months of expenses. So that is the investable surplus. Also, I'm using the word over here for the first time as not so risky, as there is no asset which I believe is absolutely risk-free. To underline the importance of asset allocation, I have just shared a small Einstein equation over here, which goes like this. E is equal to MC square. So what is E over here for us? It is the energy that sets your wealth growing. It is given by market flows multiplied by the square of asset allocation. So what is market force? It is basically, how are the markets doing? Are they bullish? They are bearish. So presume that, you are a very smart investor. Okay. And you know that the markets are not going to do well. So you invest all of your money in, say, non-risky assets. However, still the returns will be low because the markets are not doing well. And in terms of if you are not so smart investor, and if you would have invested in markets where the markets are not going to go good, you will be having probably negative returns. So market force is really very important in deciding the returns on the portfolio. However, more than that, asset allocation is very critical. That is going to decide what your overall portfolio returns would be. Many studies have shown that around 93% of the returns on a portfolio can be explained by the asset allocation and only 7% by security selection. However, mostly if you see the literature or the videos or rules, they are basically based on which shares to buy, which bond to invest in, which is a part of security selection, not the broader asset allocation. So presume that you are a person who has a option to invest in two assets, say a risky asset and a non-risky asset. Over here, when I say non-risky, please remember it is not so risky asset. It's not 100% zero risk asset. Okay. And you are a very smart stock picker. You are able to exactly know kaun sa share badega, and you are saying that I will be able to make 50% return in 1 year on the risky asset, and the non-risky asset, maybe an FD or such things, will give you only 7%. So now, if you are a risk-averse investor, then you might be investing, say, 20% in risky asset and 80% in the non-risky assets. So now, if I use the returns that we assumed over here, I will be getting a total return on portfolio of around 15.6%. Okay. So this is when I am investing 20 in risky, 20 in non-risky, 18 non-risky, sorry. But as I become a moderate risk investor, that is, I can take more risk than the risk-averse investor. Now the investments that I have made in the risky asset becomes 50 and the non-risky assets also becomes 50. So it's 50-50 allocation. Now over here, you can see that the return on portfolio jumps from 15.6% to 28.5%. That is around 82.7% more than the risk-averse investors' return on portfolio. So this tells you that even though you are smart in picking up maybe a share that will give you 50% in 1 year, still the return is lower if you are allocating a less amount to it. This is the importance of asset allocation. If you are a high risk investor, you can see the difference where the allocation is totally reverse of that of risk-averse investor, where 80% goes to risky and 20% goes to non-risky asset. Now you see the returns comes to 41.4%. What is the difference between the risk-averse investor and the high-risk investor? It is 165.4% returns. Okay? So the high-risk investor is able to get 165.4% returns as compared to less risk, say a risk-averse investor, not because they have chosen different assets, but they have chosen different proportions to be invested in the same asset classes. So this was just to underline the importance of asset allocation that we have in our overall portfolio strategy. Now, what are the examples of risky assets? It can be equity, that means direct equity. It can be equity mutual funds. It can be structured products. It can be any FNO based product. I also believe that bonds, any bond below the triple B rating are also risky bonds. Then you can also have commodity trading, which is again risky. You can also speculate real estate. जैसे कि किसने बोला भाई यहाँ पे एयरपोर्ट आने वाला है या यहाँ पे कुछ होने वाला है, so you buy the plot and think that जब आएगा तो भाव बढ़ जाएगा. This can be speculative real estate. It can be risky. What can be safe or less risky investment instruments? It can be bonds above the triple B rating. It can be bank FDs. It can be state development loans. It can be guaranteed deferred income products which are given by insurance companies. It can be top class real estate, where you have a very good place जहाँ पे everything is properly defined, सब हो चुका है. So pre-leased property definitely can be a very less risky bet. Then investing in precious metals can be less risky. So these are some of the examples of risky and less risky assets. Now, asset allocation, there are so many models to it. So if we can broadly classify into three ways. One are scientific mathematical models, like the modern portfolio theory of Harry Markowitz, which again entitles this capital market line that defines how much should be invested in risky and non-risky assets. However, sorry, we are not going to discuss this part in this video because it is highly mathematical and highly technical in nature. The other two that we are going to discuss is the conventional wisdom that goes towards saying kitna paisa should go in risky and non-risky assets. And then I will take two theories of two legends of investing. So it's a conventional wisdom. It says that higher the risk tolerance you are having, the more amount you should be allocating towards the risky assets. Okay. B says that longer the time horizon that you have, the proportion of risky assets could be high. Why? Because you have time so as to make good the losses. So over here, you can think like this. There is one big, opposites that you find. Many times younger people who are investing for their, for their retirement around 20, 30 years down the line, they start buying certain insurance products which are less risky in nature, even though they have longer time horizons. This means that investors many a times give more importance towards the objective itself. If the objective is of very high priority, they might not like to take a risk for that objective at least. Okay. However, right now what we are trying to say is that if you are a investor who uses more of logic, then you are going to do this way. And more the young you are, the more the risk you can take it. Because the first reason is that you have time on your side, so as to make good the loss, and probably your income is going to keep on increasing. Now let us take the theory of certain investment legends. Benjamin Graham, which most of us know, the guru of Warren Buffett. In his book, The Intelligent Investor, quotes like this. He says that we have suggested as a fundamental guiding rule that investors should never have less than 25% or more than 75% of his funds in common stocks, with the consequence inverse range of 75% to 25% in bonds. There is an implication here that standard division should be equal to 50-50 between two major investment mediums. So, what he says is that he gives us a range from 25% to 75% for risky, that is common stocks. Now, please remember, he is not trying to say risky and non-risky assets. He is saying only two things, common stocks and bonds. So, in actual today's life, we are not having only two options. We can have so many options as we have discussed. And the actual allocation will depend, has to be highly customized for the clients. Okay. See over here, assuming that equity is risky and bonds are non-risky, he says that equity kitna hona chahiye? 25, minimum 25, maximum 75. And if you want to balance it, it should be 50-50. That's what Benjamin Graham says. John Bogle says that he also used to always recommend roughly your age in bonds principle. What does it mean? It means that suppose your age is 30, about 30% of your portfolio should be allocated in the high quality bonds. However, he had also derived a balanced asset allocation model, which had basically two variables. One was by the investment goal, where he says that you can either be a person who wants to just accumulate wealth over a period of time. That means you are not dependent on your investments for your day-to-day living. And the other can be the distribution phase of your investments life cycle, where you are going to depend on the investments for your day-to-day expenses. And the other variable is the age. So you can either be old or you can be young. So over here he says that if you see the things, if you are a young guy and in the accumulation phase, then you should invest 80% in risky, that is as per him it was equity, and 20% in high quality bonds. If you are a young guy but in a distribution phase where you will have to still use some of the investments for your living, then you say 60% will go to equity, 40% will go to the bonds. If you are an old guy and in the accumulation phase, that is even right now you don't require any money so as to be so as to sell your investments and make a living, he says 70-30 should be the ratio, 17 equity, 13 bonds. And if you are older but in the distribution phase, then it has to be 50-50. Now what is very important to note is that both have 50-50 for sure. So Graham also says 50-50 and John Bogle also says it should be 50-50 at some point of time. So this was some series of the legends that we are having. Now, once the decision for asset allocation is made, the next is to have a portfolio strategy. So broadly, you can have two strategies. One is active portfolio strategy, other is passive portfolio strategy. In active portfolio strategy, you can have many. One can be like market timing, मतलब कब खरीदना, कब बेचना, you go in, go out of the market. Other can be sector rotation, means you should invest in FMCG now, banking now, real estate now, kya, depending upon the economic cycle. The next would be, I forget sector or timing. I buy a good security at a good point of time. I know what to buy. So I'll buy that security and I'll set. Now there's the use of specialized concept like say quants or algo models that you might be having. We are not going to discuss too much over here on active portfolio strategies because it takes lots of time. This is just to give you a brief outline of what type of strategies could be used. Then we have the other is passive strategy. What is passive strategy? Buy and hold. लेके बैठ जाओ. ये मतलब ऐसा नहीं कुछ भी लेके बैठ जाओ ऐसा नहीं बोल रहा है. So before you buy, you make some analysis and then buy either a bond or equity or anything. But once you have bought, there are two guidelines. So depending upon your risk profile, create a well-diversified portfolio at a predetermined level of risk. So suppose you want to create a portfolio of say 50-50, मतलब 1:1. So risky में 50% जाएगा और non-risky में 50% जाएगा. That is suppose that you have assumed. And now after you have assumed this, then hold the portfolio relatively unchanged over a period of time, unless it becomes inadequately diversified or inconsistent with the investor's risk and return preferences. So as I told you, you have chosen an allocation of 1:1. And you have 100 rupees, then you will invest 50 rupees in say equity and 50 rupees in say bonds, that is risky and non-risky. Now suppose the markets went up and the equity of rupees 50 became rupees 100. So now what is the allocation? 100 in equity, 15 bonds. Now if you are following a passive strategy, you need to readjust or rebalance the portfolio. So the asset allocation again becomes 1:1. So what are you going to do? You'll say my total portfolio is 100 plus 50, it is 150, divided by 2 is 75. That means you need to sell 25 rupees of equity and invest the same amount in the non-risky assets and make the allocation 75, it is 1:1. So this is a brief outline about asset allocation and portfolio strategy. We are going to have more videos on the next steps of portfolio management, or the second pillar of wealth management, that is the enhancing the wealth. Thank you so much. In case you have any queries on this thing, you can get in touch with me on this phone number. I'll be very happy to help you all. Thank you so much.